Good afternoon, my name is Hryhoriy and I want to thank everybody who joins Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's day 519 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor, and now we will be talking about the nuclear safety, about the situation in the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Joining us online is Hryhoriy Plachkov, head of the State Inspectorate for Nuclear Regulation in 2017-2021. Good afternoon, Mr. Hryhoriy. Good afternoon, Mr. Hryhoriy. Within the last week, in the media, there are a lot of discussions about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, about switch of one of the reactors into hot shutdown mode. What does it tell us? What are the risks resulting from such activities of occupiers? What should we expect for? Well, there is information that reactor number 5 that was in hot shutdown is switched into a cold shutdown mode, and the occupiers, along with the administration, try to switch the reactor number 4 into a hot shutdown mode, so the reactor number 5 is switched to cold shutdown and number 4 to hot shutdown. First of all, it's the violation of all the existing licenses existing for reactors 5 and 4, and given the situation in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, it's quite a serious challenge because the psychological condition of personnel is difficult too. We have reports that there was some unclear personnel coming from other nuclear power plants from aggressor country, and they torture our personnel who don't accept switching the reactors of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to different modes. So the situation is difficult and quite concerning. Mr. Hryhoriy, what can be the consequences of such actions by occupiers? Well, first of all, it may result in some non-standard events in the nuclear power plants, because the personnel that was brought to the nuclear power plant is not licensed, they are not properly trained, and that's why the activities of personnel who do not comply with the licensing parameters may be of harm in the reactors 4 or 5, but to understand what's going on inside the heads of the occupiers, it's difficult. So I think they're trying to change the reactors to perform some repair works on reactor number 5. Mr. Hryhoriy, what about the mission of IAEA there? Do they continue working there? Do they continue staying there? Well, according to the information I have, yes, IAEA continues to work in all of the nuclear power plants of Ukraine, not only in those located in temporarily occupied territories, but also in other NPPs. They documented the mining of the buffer zone in the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And finally, IAEA confirmed the violation of physical protection of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. That was clear since the very beginning of the occupation of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, but now we're getting reports from the International Atomic Energy Agency about the mining of the buffer zone. So now, understanding what's of threat in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, what do you think? What are the scenarios that can unfold? Because lately we're here to different experts, we hear the reports from specialists in this area who diverge in their opinions regarding the possibility of a great tragedy happening there. What is your opinion? Well, look, about the situation in the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, in my opinion, the most apocalyptic scenario that can happen is the fusion of our active zones, and that might be a scenario when the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is getting back in our possession, and I have no doubt about that it will be returned under our control, and we wouldn't be able to recommission it back into commercial use and to reconnect it to the power grid of Ukraine, or we wouldn't be able to repair it completely, or the repairs would take a very long time. Well, those are the risks. The nuclear power plant is either on one electricity feeding line or switching to the reserve power lines, and there's yet another issue with the Kakhovka dam, because to cool the active zones of the reactors there is only the cooling pool left plus the collector, which is available at Zaporizhzhia thermal power plant. So if there will be absence of such two factors as cooling capacity and the electric power supply, there will be no such a disaster as in Fukushima or Chernobyl, but there may be a local disaster in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Thank you very much for this information, dear colleagues. If we have any questions from the floor, please proceed. Good afternoon, Valentin Marchuk, Ukrinform. You've mentioned that now there is a lot of unclear people coming to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, but do we know about the number of Ukrainian personnel staying there and what are their functions? I apologize, there is different information according to the official details that I've heard. Our personnel numbers from 2,500 to 3,000 there, but I cannot give you the exact number of people who were brought by the occupiers. It's very difficult to answer this question, but they keep bringing the personnel from the similar reactors, the reactors of similar models, and our personnel currently keeps trying, in my opinion, to fulfill an important mission. They try to maintain the safe condition of the reactors, because the nuclear power plant, the reactors are not being designed for war in the nuclear power plant site or in its whereabouts. So Russians try to bring the specialists from other nuclear power plants of the aggressor country, or they try to press on our personnel so that they can carry their, they can switch their reactors to different modes, because generation of electric power without Kakhovka dam is currently impossible. In Minenergo there were statements that one of the reactors may explode at some random moment. What is the probability of that? Well, unfortunately, I cannot comment the central bodies of executive power and the ministries, but if the situation remains like that, the risks of explosions are minimal. Thank you very much for this information. Thank you for joining our broadcast. I'm reminding you, joining us was Hryhoriy Plachkov, head of the State Inspectorate for Nuclear Regulation in 2017-2021. Right now our team is working on the schedule for tomorrow, so stay tuned, follow our announcements, let's continue working for our victory, and let's thank our armed forces and all of the security and defense forces, and glory to Ukraine.